cool. So let's do this now. First of all, you did tell me about this retreat some time ago, I guess probably when you booked it. When you booked it. And I looked it up and I looked into it and I read it. And I'd be honest, I said to myself, oh, this is too good to be true. Like it was one of those things where it's like you can go to a retreat and you hear about people having awakenings at retreats. You hear about them all the time. Yeah. But even then, when you at a retreat, it's so rare, like rare to see that that it can happen. But it does happen. And you also hear about the odd case where some people go to retreat and they burst and they commit suicide right afterwards. You hear about those too. Unfortunately, because it depends what opens up for you, but something can open up so dark within you. Especially like if you have the type of awakening where you see the darkness of the self, the darkness of the ego, and all the stuff that lies beneath, and also all the stuff that ties to all human beings. Like when I talk about the human atrocities and stuff like that, if a person has an experience like that and they're not ready for it, trust me, like, you have to be ready for this. Like when you're not ready for it and you see all that, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm impure, I'm impure, I'm sinful, I'm whatever. I don't know what to, in the odd time, you have the unfortunate situation where people like just end it, right? And then you have the other end of the scale where people open up, and it's the greatest thing that a person could ever experience when you realize that you're not the self. And again, like what you're saying in the voice note, that there's different levels of awakening. So it can go from recognizing the authentic self all the way up to realizing God realization. So there's a spectrum that can happen within that. And of course, there's also the one where you get the full spectrum from the beginning all the way to the end, all in one shot. All these things can happen. And I know this is hard for people to take in if they haven't had that experience. So as I'm saying this, I'm really like, I'm creating an audience I'm creating an audience of one. You could ever get some, you know what I mean? Because it's one of those things where most people will never ever relate to that. Yeah. But it can happen.
It can happen.
Right? It can definitely happen. But it's so good to have someone where I can have the conversation and they're not clueless like Nathan, like, what? Huh? What?
Hey, it takes time, okay? It takes time for a breakthrough, okay? All right. Sometimes it might not be my lifetime. It might take, I don't know. I may meet you again.
Shut the fuck up. You can do this in this lifetime. You can do it right now. Shut up. But that's true. You hear that. You can, like, it could happen in many, in many lifetimes and all that kind of stuff. That's so they say. Yeah, I believe anyone can do it.
I say like 2 years.
2 years? I don't know about that, but I don't know about that. It can't happen. It does happen, right? But it's so difficult to do that when because I know Nathalie's been at this probably about like 12 years. He knows this thing is not easy to do. It's really, really not easy. I don't know if people really understand. Like for me, that feat has been the most difficult feat of my life. I know I play it off and do whatever I do, and I do what comedian, youth worker / whatever, but it's been the hardest thing, the most challenging thing of my life, yet by far the most rewarding.
Yes.
Yes. By far, easily. Like I tell people this by far the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I don't know how to express this anymore other than try to come up with some books. Dude, so the greatest. I can't think of anything greater, except for like a high level of awakening or something, but I can't think of anything greater.
It makes everything else seem absurd.
Oh, yes.
Oh, right?
So true. And only when a person hits it, gets it. Because I'm just like, someone asked me today, I was at work, and I was talking to a colleague, and the colleague was trying to get into my brain. And I'm just like, I can't have the conversation right now because we're at work. And if we get into this, I'm going to be stuck talking to you for hours, and I don't have that kind of time. So you're going to have to call me or something, and so I can sit down and talk to you about this, but I can't get into this right now. And she's like, I'm so intrigued. I'm like, you don't know the half. You do not know the half of it. But I will gladly sit down and have that conversation with you any day of the week. I just hope you're able to handle what I have to say, because it is by far the most rewarding thing I have ever experienced. And I don't even know why I say I, because in that moment, there is no I at this point. I melts away. The me melts away. It hits. And then when you have the odd person that says, oh, yeah, I had something like that. No, you didn't. Yeah, I did that. I did that back in, I was taking some acid. It was like, no, that's not it, bro. That's not it. No. All right. Okay. Let's get on track here. Let's get back on track here. Like,
I'm so sorry. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Nathalie. Give us the rundown if you can. If you can, I know it happened recently, so it could be like, but take your time.
Wow, I'm like feeling into where to begin. So I landed at a retreat called an Enlightenment Intensive. That was about 3.5 days, and this is something that had been in the works for so long, on some level, right? So I've been on this spiritual journey for 12 years. And in the last year or so, I've really strengthened my focus on shadow work and studying the nature of self, consciousness, and reality. So Peter Ralston was a huge teacher for me during that time, like thousands of pages read, but it was priming me. It was priming me to have the experience that I did have. So the man who facilitates this retreat is named Russell Scott. And what happened was in May of this year, I ended up finding a book in a used bookstore in Cambridge that was Russell Scott, Awakening the Guru in You. And this was an old version of the book. So the title page to me was like clip art. And I'm like, okay. But when I opened it and I looked through what was written and how it was written, I realized that there was something deeper here. So I ended up buying the book. And it took me a couple of months to actually read it. And finding that book was the first synchronicity, but there was a whole other series of them that unfolded. So when I read the book, I realized that the process that they describe, which is in a nutshell, it's a method that uses a structured form of communication as a way to accelerate two people's evolutionary process. And that's called coevolution. So that's like the real short story of it, but I've been doing something very similar to this, though less structured, with my sacred partner. So our what we call our vortex conversations, that's where we connect to what is real and then express it in truth. So the process was familiar to me in some ways. So once I read the book, I just got so intrigued at the chance to study with him. And I found out that he lived like just the next town over. So he lives locally. I was like, oh, this man's from Guelph. He used to live in Guelph.
Oh, I remember you telling me about him before you even booked the retreat. Yes, I remember now. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I end up finding out that this man is the father of my good friend's husband.
What?
Oh, yeah. I couldn't believe it. I sent a message to my friend like, oh, yeah, look at this passage from Russell Scott. She gets all excited. She's like, well, I know him very well because he's my husband's father. Or some relationship like that. I couldn't believe
Stop
it.
right there. My mind's already blown. I don't need it anymore. Wow. Whoa, that's insane. Okay.
Right? So all these crazy synchronicities are happening. I find out that the Enlightenment Intensive, the next one, is at the end of November. And I was thinking, if I can get my car by then, which I bought in May and didn't end up getting until October, I'm like, if I have my car by the end of November, I can go. Otherwise, it'd be too much with the rental on top of it. Yeah. So let's see what happens. My car shows up a month early, like comfortable amount of time to get used to it. So now I've got the car. I booked the retreat. And once I was done Russell Scott's book, that's when I went into Peter Ralston to, again, just learn to play with the paradoxical nature of trying to explain the unexplainable and like racking my brain like a Rubik's Cube, trying to understand these sentences that make no sense to the rational mind, but on some level, there needs to be a trust and an openness that this can be experienced directly bypassing the mind in a sense, because you're going into direct consciousness. So I was reading Peter Ralston's books and I was preparing in that way. And then finally, 2 days before the retreat, oh, wait, I forgot. So there ended up being a darshan that was scheduled for Paramahamsa Vishwananda. Did I get it?
Make me look bad. Don't say the names.
Paramahamsa Vishwananda.
So sorry.
Say it, Nathan.
On. No. Whatever, man. I'm not awakened yet. I didn't have that breakthrough. But please go on, Natalie.
That's amazing.
So there ended up being a darshan event that opened up with him maybe 4 days before the retreat, which I'd never done before. So I joined the darshan and went through that experience. 2 days after that, now we're 2 days before the retreat, I decided to go for a drive on a huge work day. I needed a break. So I went driving through the back roads nearby. And at one point I'm driving and I see something jump out of the ditch on the left-hand side. And I squinted, like, what is that? Until I realized it was an owl. It was an owl. It was a huge owl, like at least a 3-foot wingspan. I had no idea owls were so big. And this was the middle of the day.
Yeah.
It was 3 p.m. I'd never even seen an owl on all the times I went out walking. So this owl like jumps out of the ditch, goes in the air like this, swoops down along the left side of my car, and then goes up behind me, and I can see in the rear view mirror, it's like curving up into the sky. And I'm like, wow, what? Let me look up what this means just for the sake of curiosity. And what kept coming up on it, like all the pages I looked at, was it's a sign of enlightenment. It's a symbol of enlightenment. I'm like, well, that bodes well for an enlightenment intensive. So that's just what led to the retreat.
Yeah. Wow.
Did the owl say, when the owl flew off, did it say 666? Like, was it like some Drake shit? It was like, that's what I was thinking the whole time, like an owl. It means enlightenment? I never knew that. I'm sorry, but please go on.
Was this during the night or during the day?
During the day.
During the day.
They're supposed to be nocturnal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Huh.
Right?
Yeah.
Then for the retreat, how do I put this into words? The vast majority of the retreat over the 3.5 days was, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here. To give some context, over those 3.5 days, we're silent during the retreat, except for when we do partnered contemplation, which are called dyads. So essentially, in a nutshell, how it works is you pair up with someone and you're going to have a conversation, a structured form of conversation for 45 minutes. So you start.
Nathan's already struggling from this point on. Like I can see in his eyes.
Should have brought a whiteboard.
Dyad? Huh? The vessel's about to burst in his head just now. Continue.
So you end up in a 2 people in a conversation. That's why it's called a dyad. So you're face to face, you're looking at each other, and there's 2 roles. There's a speaker and a listener. So the listener's role is simply to sit there with a neutral expression. So it's not like normal conversation where you're reacting and you're smiling and nodding. You're not reacting. You're simply holding space. And you ask the speaker their question. So the speaker picks a question. I worked with, tell me who you are. And then the listener gives me that instruction, specifically like that, tell me who you are. And then they sit and they listen. Me as the speaker, I go through a 4-step process. Step 1 is I bring my awareness to whatever's most real for me in the moment. Okay, let's say I feel a fluttering in my belly. So if I feel a fluttering in my belly, I'll bring my awareness to that. Then I will intend to directly experience that fluttering in my belly. And when I put that intention out there, that's when I open up and I start to contemplate. So I'm literally just sitting and being open and waiting to see what arises. And it could be a thought, it could be a sensation, it could be a memory. But the key is whatever comes up is what is meant to come up. So they said to us, don't question it. If you're like, I don't know why this story from when I was 5 is coming up, you express it. So it's almost like you wait for something to arise. When it arises, you get a good feel for it, and then you communicate it to the listener. How do I put this? In the sense of the insight, but not a whole backstory. So you communicate it, then the listener says thank you. And this goes on, either you switch back and forth after each thank you, or once every 5 minutes. You do this for 45 minutes. So now we ended up doing those kinds of contemplations for most of the day on all days. But we also had walking contemplations, eating contemplations, what they called rest contemplations. So we were just constantly in contemplation, in silence. And it was on this beautiful, pristine land. The forest itself was pure medicine. The water was from the bubbling brook around the property was so clean you could drink straight from it. Like, that's the quality of the environment that was surrounding us. So as for the process itself, it was really interesting. So I remember the first day and a half or so, I was noticing a lot of a specific dynamic that I do, a pattern. It's a pattern. I was noticing a pattern of trying to make something happen, like trying to figure out, am I doing this right? Is there something else I need to do? Like, it was that kind of energy. Like, how do I do this? But this is a process of trusting and allowing. So they just kept saying, trust the process, trust the process. Okay, I'll trust the process, but I don't know if I'm doing it right. So I had to work with that for a day and a half. And
Nathan, you still with us?
Yeah, trust the process, man.
Just checking, bro.
Trust the process.
Trust
okay.
the process. Okay.
I'm actively listening. Okay. So I can't lie. Sometimes the CTE takes over my mind and I wander off. I can't help. But I'm listening. I'm listening. Like Dr. Crane, I'm listening. So please continue.
All right, just checking in.
Oh man. So yeah, how do I put this into words? It was interesting to notice what was happening to my awareness the longer the retreat went on, because there's something to be said where all of a sudden, for every moment of your day, the instruction is like, you continue to contemplate. So I'm going about my day doing all these things, working with the process and continuously asking myself, who is this that's having this experience? Who is this that's having this experience? My mind would wander, and then I bring it back, and then I bring it back. So I started to notice.
Okay.
So I started to notice that my awareness was starting to get a one-pointed nature. Like, the level of concentration that started to develop was like precise, like a laser. It was very satisfying in that way. But at the same time, my awareness was also opening up. So it did this sensation of almost as if I were a satellite dish. So I'm opening up like this while I'm concentrating, and we're just continuously going through these dyads, So I'm sitting in front of people, and sometimes to communicate what was most real was, should I go into that side tangent right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please, yes, please.
Okay.
No, I'm not bored. I'm curious. Don't listen to Morgan. He's just shut up, Morgan. Please.
Okay. I'll give you a good example. So, I'm just going to come out and say, this will be nice, go into my truth. So one of my biggest challenges on this journey has been a compulsion to take it in my skin. And this has been ongoing for my entire life, 33 years. And it's something that I find very difficult to it's a deep, deep pattern. And I would always just wear a bunch of makeup to cover up my face and the damage that I do, right? At this retreat, what happened was Initially, I planned on keeping the makeup on, even though they said no cosmetics.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's not like I'm wearing mascara and eyeshadow. It's just some foundation. I'll keep wearing it. But on the first night, I realized that if I don't take the makeup off, I'm not actually being my true self. So I have to take it off. And to take it off, I hadn't done that in roughly 20 years. Like to actually allow people to see me without that on, 20 years. So I took it off the first night. And so the next day when we started the dyads, the thing that was most real for me was, I'm feeling so vulnerable right now. And here's why. And then I would express it. So that's just one example of speaking the truth of what's real for me in this moment, like going into like all of it that's starting to come up. Sometimes it was something really beautiful or something random and casual, like there was all kinds of stuff coming up. But what was most important was to see if I could connect to that very deep kernel of truth. At another point, this was on like the earlier in the third day, I said, what I'm noticing is my mind's wandering. It's thinking of home. I want to go back home now and rest and take a shower as long as I want and just, you know, and be finished. And what came out of my mouth was a flowery, like, you know, I see my mind wandering into the future, but I'm retraining it to come back to the present, because otherwise I'm fueling the dynamic that the habit of my mind going into the future. So I gave this big, beautiful, flowery answer. My turn finished. The other person went. When it came back to me, I realized what I said wasn't my truth. It was what I thought would sound good, even though it wasn't intentionally trying to deceive. I thought that was my truth. When I felt into it, the truth was, I can't wait to go home. I just can't wait to go home. The moment I connected to the truth, like the truth, not just what I think the flowery truth should be, it's like this constant process started to unlock a lot of energy in my body, a lot of energy in my being. It was shifting my awareness, like some effects were happening, right? I was feeling more relaxed, more grounded, more open. So all of this started to cultivate, but what ended up happening was the whole journey over the 3 days was similar. It was like flat. It was getting better, and then it just suddenly shot up.
Yeah.
Where was I going with this? One moment. So on the first day, I was trying to get the hang of the process, and I was curious and I was open. As the first day went on and I got towards the end of it, the pattern started coming up of, I'm trying to make something happen. I can't leave an Enlightenment Intensive after I built it up to all these people and be like, well, it was relaxing. I had vegetarian food and I was in the forest, which is good. It's good, but I was going there for a direct experience. But I knew that if I'm trying to grab at it, trying to make it happen, it won't happen. So I get to the second day. Now the second day was interesting because the process is so repetitive. Like, tell me who you are. Every 5 minutes, tell me who you are. Tell me who you are. What is most real for me? Tell me who you are. Who is this experiencing this? You keep going and going and going. And I start to have some cathartic releases on an emotional level. I'd find myself suddenly in the middle of a dyad with my throat all tensed up. Like it was like I could feel the musculature of my throat loosen up the more I spoke my truth. So it started to loosen my throat. And sometimes these waves of emotion would wash over me. Or one moment I'd feel grounded and calm, and the next I would feel like I just wanted to explode everywhere. There was so much energy. So some of it started to arise on the second day, but I didn't feel comfortable in that kind of environment. Quiet contemplations everywhere, to just lose my mind in that explosive way, that cathartic way that one needs sometimes.
Did you sometimes express that, not feeling comfortable in that environment? Did that come up verbally as well, or no? I'm not feeling comfortable in the environment.
I don't think that's something I actually expressed, or did I? Maybe I did. We did a lot of dyads.
Yeah.
I'm sure I must have mentioned it at some point.
At some point, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what ended up happening was, as I got closer to the end of the second day, continuously trusting and allowing, and repeating this whole process. Once I got to the end of the second day, something started to happen where, okay, how do I put this into words? And I don't remember the transition, almost like if you take plant medicine, sometimes it feels like, okay, I'm just waiting for the plant medicine to kick in, and next thing you know, boom, you're taken over by something.
Yeah.
So the shift was that quick. And all of a sudden, I remember sitting there with this absolute radiance shooting out of me. Like I was the sun. It was so ridiculously powerful. All I wanted to do was just sit in that energy. There was such a brilliant radiance. And at the same time, there was this, this knowing, I guess is the best way I can describe it.
Mm-hmm.
It was clarity. That's the word I'm looking for. There was a ridiculous level of clarity about who I am and what this life is. Like, it was laughable. I couldn't stop laughing. Like, oh, this is what it means to be alive. This is what my true self is. Like, and again, it wasn't like I was having the actual thought process go through my mind. It was like these flashes of recognition. So I recognized myself. The quality of my consciousness changed. I remember one of the helpers at the retreat, or monitors they were called, he said to me, oh, how did he say it again? Like, you'll know when it happens. There's a difference in the quality of the consciousness. Mm-hmm. It's not quite, it's not like your day-to-day consciousness. And there are different levels of awakening. Mm-hmm. So, what else could I say about it? The clarity was tremendous. The energy was ridiculous. I simultaneously felt like the most deeply centered, grounded state, like absolutely just plugged into my beingness, into my body. Like I put on a transformer suit, like, oh, I'm in, I feel it. I feel my body. I feel my aliveness. So grounded. There was such a perfect stillness in my beingness. Like the stillness was ridiculous. Like, now I understood on a whole new level what it means when people say, like, oh, there's an inner stillness. Connect your inner stillness.
I call it the firm foundation of being.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. But at the same time that I felt this, I felt electrically alive, deeply vibrant. Everything was so rich around me that just looking at someone's face could make me cry. Like, oh God, I see you. I see you too. Mm-hmm. Holding space for people while they were sharing was one of the most fulfilling experiences I've ever had in my life. To just be able to sit and hold space like that, and then have space being held for me, right? Allowing myself to be seen was huge. It was huge. To be seen on a whole new level. There was something so freeing about practicing getting in touch with what's real for me, what's truthful for me, what is arising within me, and then to express it. And there's something about this process, we don't know what it is, but it accelerates the process of becoming conscious. They claim you can have an enlightenment experience in 3 to 4 days. That's what got me. I said, you know what? Maybe they're embellishing this, but I won't know until I find out. Lo and behold, it is true.
Like, it's true.
It's true.
Wow.
So I just went through this absolute ridiculous, like, it felt like the shell of my limited human self had just went and just exploded. Everything was pure joy, pure emotion, pure aliveness in a way that was absolutely amazing.
That's freaking amazing.
So it didn't end there, though.
I know. I was about to say, what happens next?
Oh, that was the end of the second day.
That's
so
that's the end of the second day. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Then I went to bed that night. I don't remember any dreams. There was nothing particularly remarkable about that sleep. However, the next morning, I had to some degree landed from that hugely expansive state. So I'm having my first dyad, and what I'm feeling really is kind of, I'm kind of flat. Like there's a part, I noticed the part of me that's like, oh, I want that to happen again. Can I make that happen? Like, so I wasn't fully in that open, grounded space the way I was the night before. But we kept going through the process. And my partner happened to be this super, just like a 70-year-old Italian man with the sweetest smile and heart I've ever met. Like, he's a caricature of a beautiful being. Like, it's amazing. I loved his energy. So he was just exploding all over the place. Oh, I'm feeling this energy, and it's going up and it's going here, and he's having the time of his life. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here like, well, what's real for me is I feel kind of grounded. Yeah. So I didn't know what was about to happen. So we keep going. And in the very last dyad, an emotional cathartic release happened. And that was the one I had been like suppressing a little bit in the previous couple of days. It just went, it felt like, and thank God I have experience with working with emotional catharsis. So I knew what to do and how to do it. Because when it started to come through, it was like, okay, just like open up, open up, don't resist it. It felt, honestly, at that point, I don't think I could have resisted it even if I wanted to. It felt like a divine hand was like reaching down my throat and pulling grief out of my tissues.
Oh God.
Like, it was so intense. And I was crying like the tears, like the grief was coming from my belly.
Yeah.
It was bouncing up from my belly. I had to lean forward on cover my face like this with my hands. And
so serious.
And I was feeling these crazy waves of this grief. Russell comes to sit with me. Everyone else had gone to breakfast, and he's holding space. And I said to him, I'm like, I'm not suffering. This is not painful. Don't worry. Yeah. I got this. Thanks for being here, but don't worry. I'm not suffering. I'm not in pain. And I just allow the process to keep going until I started to get to the other side where I'm starting to shine again. And Russell is looking at me with tears in his eyes, right? Like proud papa energy. Like, yes, you're doing it. He's like, who are you? And I just exploded in the same energy as the night before. And I said, I am love. And I just started naming all of the qualities of my truth. I am love. I am light. I am joy. I am playfulness. The more I did this, the more the energy started to, like, it was like a fountain. My tears down my face, and I'm all moist everywhere, and big swollen eyes. And I'm like, I am love. So I finished going through this process, and Russell said, go speak with Monica, one of the monitors in the lunchroom, if you see her.
How many monitors are there?
There were 3.
3, okay.
Yeah, we're a group of about 10 people, 10, 12 people.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to talk with her. And this was the absolute key. Thank God he said that, because what ended up happening was I went to sit with her and I told her about what I had just experienced and what I had experienced the night before. And as I'm talking through it, that's when I started realizing, oh, hold on a second. I said, there's different levels of awakening. I didn't realize that I was holding on to some cartoon version of enlightenment, like I'm going to be sitting like this and it's going to be a big whiteout experience, and whatever preconceived notions I had, because on some level I was still holding on to them, because it's so important. Don't have preconceived notions. You can't describe it. You'll know when you experience it, but still the mind holds on to these things. Once I saw the preconceived notions for what they were, I realized, oh, I did have a direct experience. I had 2 direct experiences this weekend, and I've had them before.
Yeah.
I've had them before, and they're getting progressively more and more powerful. So that's when I started laughing. I said, it's so simple.
I got it.
My God. So when I left that retreat, I felt that level of afterglow for like 3 days afterwards, like living purely from my true self, having the time of my life in everything that I'm doing. I'm giving money away at the gas station guy, and I'm striking up with every person I meet and tell me who you are. I was just exploding.
I may have lost a $500 after my
Oh wow.
Here you go. I got gifts for you.
Was it like Mr.
You get a car. You get a car.
Was it like Mr. Scrooge? Like after his three like
I remember that.
Yeah. Just for like around Christmas time. That's the thing sorry. Yeah.
I remember that scene.
So yeah, and then the creative energy as well, like the ideas, I could almost feel into a framework of what do I want my next year to be. There was something happening creatively, coming together, catalyzing, that I've been working on for some of it for years now.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out like there's something that's birthing creatively. Not sure what it looks and feels like yet, but I can feel it, like a phone that won't stop ringing. And this weekend was, there was a level of clarity I got for the vision of that birthing that was more clear than anything else I'd gotten before.
Yeah, so just it's very interesting how laughter is a common thing. Laughter, crying, like tears of joy, is a common theme with these events.
And I'm glad you mentioned that example though, because you reminded me of something else that I was experiencing, was the absurdity of the human condition.
Oh.
And not in any kind of rejecting or judgmental way.
Yeah.
Like in a very endearing way of, oh my God, like it's almost like I could see my small limited self and what I'm afraid of and what I'm insecure about, what I'm working through and what I take so seriously. And in that moment, it was laughable.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, this is what I was worried about. It's so true. It's so true. And you just laugh and you're laughing. Like, I can't believe I've been holding on to this fear over this thing for whatever reason. I can't believe I've been bullshitting myself my whole entire life. I can't believe that I've been putting on this mask or the different types of masks just to get through life or to be accepted by others. I can't believe, like, it goes on and on and on of all the things when you see the absurdity of the whole thing. And you're like, oh my gosh, why was I doing this? And then you're not regretting that you did it, but it's just like, oh my gosh, it was right in front of me the whole time and I couldn't see it. And as soon as you turn off that thing, whatever that thing is, it's clear as day.
Yeah.
And it is laughable. You're like, that's it? That's all I had to do?
That's it, yep.
Walking this rocky path, all that, whatever. All I had to do was just surrender and you sit there and you're like, oh, it was in front of me the whole time. You laugh. You're like,
yes.
It was so simple.
It's so simple. Oh my God. I actually used that exact line. It's so simple. It's so
simple.
So
we make it complicated.
We do.
That's why I say to Nathan that you can do it in this lifetime, because we make it complicated.
Oh.
So the first 3 days were amazing. And then ego patterns start to come back in.
Of course.
Oh my Lord. And I know this is expected, but I honestly, even though I was expecting it, this is kicking my ass. Because it's almost like you go from so expansive with such clarity on who my true self is and what this life is, that when I contracted back down to more of my human self and my typical identities, the contrast was so huge that it started to kick up anything in me that I'm still holding on to.
Yeah. The fall from grace.
So it's been an interesting process to navigate that, but at the same time, even though it's challenging in and of itself, and I'm still a little bit in the thick of it, I can see the potential of what can shift here, because I can see more clearly, like, oh, here's a subconscious pattern of trying to control things to make sure that they'll be perfect, so that when I'm perfect, it will prove that I'm worthy and that I'm lovable. Oh, like I'm starting to see those core human wounds highlighted in a whole new way.
In a whole new way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting.
Very interesting.
There's like a calling to.
They got to go back to being human and to figure out how to deal with how to continue dealing with the human condition. Because the last thing you want to do is spiritual bypass. And it's something that we all do. Like at some point, you are going to do some spiritual bypassing, but it's to acknowledge that you're about to that you're going to do it, and to come back down and realize that I am bypassing, and to come back to being and recognizing that I am human, and I have to work on this human stuff, because I also have to interact with other people and all that stuff. All that stuff comes back. The person that pisses you off at the workplace or something, and you got to deal with all that stuff, even though you've had this expansive opening of awareness and the groundedness of being firm in your being and all of that, and still have to come back to, gosh, I got to go back to. And then you go back to work or go back to your social circle, and it's like people don't even recognize it. Hey, Nat, you good? you know what just happened to me just now? Hey, how was your weekend there, buddy? And you're like, I wish I could tell you, but like, yeah, it's just one of those things. And you're like, okay, what do I tell people, or do I keep this to myself and just back to being a corporate slave? What do I do here?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's something. It's a kick in the ass.
It is. It's
Oh, Nathan's got something to say finally. Go for it.
Well, I didn't want to stop the story. He's like, you guys were going.
I know, like, bro, I'm joking with you. Come on.
It's like you go back to work, you're glowing, you're floating, and just like, oh, something's different about Nathalie and Morgan. Well, I wonder what it is. What are you using, like a new toner? What are you using, new conditioner? What's going on? New shampoo, huh? Dove? Is that it? Okay. Right.
Is it hairstylist?
Got kissed with light.
So true. It's so funny.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like, because you come from you beam up to this. It's like this joke I remember from Cat Williams, where he goes to Martin Lawrence's house. He goes to his mansion, and he goes to the biggest room, and this is a huge yard. He's like, you guys want to watch a movie? It's like, yeah, we got a theater room. It's a theater room? Oh my God. They sit in the theater room, they have popcorn, candy, all this stuff. And then you go back to your house, and it just sucks. It's like, oh, it's like, no, I just got a DVD player, but I got no movie theater. What kind of bullshit is this? Coming down from and letting the ego come back and controlling certain things and patterns. Like, how do you break that? Like, that's what I'm curious about.
Who wants
how
to
do you stop
first?
that? How do you? Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry.
No. Who wants to go first? Like,
okay.
For me,
it's the Canadian in me.
My ego just says, "I'll go first." No, for me, that wasn't hard. That wasn't hard coming back down. What was hard about it is I was really disappointed when this is like the first awakening back in 2008, when I'm like, how comes it didn't stick? How comes I can't? Because there's this feeling that you're in, you're like, if I can stay in this space forever, I am good, right? And then, because it's so clear and it seems like it's so easy. Like when you're in it, you're in it. It's so, and you're like, oh my gosh, and you're grooving it and everything. And then when you come out of it, you're like, how comes that didn't stick? Oh my gosh. But something does stick. Something does stick. The awareness of knowing who you are sticks. You can't forget it. You can't undo it. But that feeling, the sense of essence that comes forward, that it's like this essence comes in the forefront, and your ego goes in the background. And when you're back again, where the ego comes back to the forefront and the essence seems to go in the background, you're like, what the hell? Right? But I was able to manage very well. But that also could be because half my colleagues are all therapists and counselors and all that. I've always had people to go around and talk to after the come down. My colleague Priya, she's been a great person to go to every time. She's the one I always went to anytime I came down from an experience. She's the one I went to. She never understood them, but she had information that she can give me that I could use just to ground myself. Right? She's been a great resource for that. I thank her deeply for always being there for me. And I can call her right now and say, hey, I'm going through something. Can you help me through it? And she's more than willing to do it. Right. But I've never had to really do that. But yeah, Tasha is another colleague of mine. When I had my first event, she was the one that was around to help me through some stuff, because I went right back into my troubled everyday flaw Morgan. You know, I won't even get into it, but just all the stuff that I'm just capable of doing. I had to show her my dark side, my demons of what I'm capable of. And she just looked at me without any judgment, just told me what I needed to hear at the time. So there's Priya, there's Tasha, there's Alyssa, another colleague of mine, another counselor, helped me through a lot of stuff, especially relationship stuff. All right, because I'm shitty at relationships, like romantic I'm shitty at that. She helped me through those things. All right, so I have these people in my corner to help me through stuff, and so I'm grateful for that. All right, but other than that, I had a pretty easy time. There was some intense moments, of course, but I'm if you know me as a person, I'm good with chaotic events. My whole life is full of chaos, so I can easily just go right back and ride on that rocky mountain, no problem, because my whole life was chaotic anyway. I got used to that. The ego's gotten used to that. So it was easier. The hard part for me was the physical stuff. That's the most challenging out of the three, out of the mental, the emotional, and the physical. For me, it was physical. And other people, it's mental, and some other people, it's emotional. And for some people, it's all of the above. Well, it's different for different people. But yeah, I can say that for me. And then as I kept having more awakening types of experiences, it got easier and easier. And then there's points where it got harder, depending on to what angle we're talking about, and so on. But that part was the easy part. The physical part for me is the most challenging. Yeah. If that answers your question, Nathan.
Natalie, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm noticing it more on an emotional level. It's almost like the light was so strong that everything that's still a shadow within me just went all at the same time. Because again, the contrast between what I experienced as my true self and the limited aspects of myself, right? Where I'm still feeling fear and judgment and shame, like anything, guilt, anything like that I, on some level, have been holding on to, is starting to rush out of me like air out of a balloon. And what I'm noticing is the same pattern that was happening at the retreat, the pattern of, oh, I got to do something with this. What do I do with this to get here or to make this happen? Like that energy is still active, because as we're speaking, I'm realizing, oh, all I need to do is surrender, is meditate, go inward and open up and surrender to what I'm experiencing. But I'm noticing the part of me that's fighting, like, oh, I don't want to feel like this. I want to go back to, I thought I would hold on to it. So I can feel that part of my ego like wrestling strong. So I know it's part of the process, but it feels like an emotional purge.
An emotional purge, huh? Interesting. Yeah. So for you, it's emotional.
Yeah.
Me more physical. Interesting. This is good to know.
Yeah.
Just to get the different accounts of what people go through. Because for me, I remember what year this was. Gosh, when was this? 2013, maybe 2013, 2014. I had another one, and when I came down, this was different, because when I came down, every day for 8 months, I would go through, I wake up in bliss. Yeah, I'd wake up in bliss, and it would last for about it would last for, like, I'll wake up in bliss, I'll do my hour meditation with energy, and then about a half an hour after that, it starts to dissipate. And this would happen every day for about 8 months, 8 months or so. Well, I say 8 months, but there was a moment where it stopped, and then it started up again with which is within the 8 month period. And it just kept going. Every day I wake up bliss and go through all these feelings. But there were points that throughout the day where sometimes I'll tap into this bliss, and the bliss would be so strong and lasted so long, it burned me out. And it got painful. It just got painful being in that bliss. I'm just like, stop the bliss. I can't, my body can't take any more of this. Yeah. And those got really uncomfortable. And then there was moments where I feel like I'm on fire, and I feel like my body's burning. And then there's times where I feel like my body is cold. I'm in a warm environment and I'm cold. And then I'm having moments where I feel like there's earthquakes happening. I remember one time I'm sitting there, I was in my room, like what I'm in right now, and I'm working on something, and I swore I felt an earthquake. And I'm like, holy shit, there's an earthquake. I run down the stairs, earthquake, earthquake. And my kids are like, what the? My kids are just chilling. They're like, what? What earthquake? I was like, oh, damn. Am I going insane? I walk right back up the stairs. I'm like, holy shit, I thought it was an earthquake. Like weird things like that would happen. Oh yeah, like a lot of, like, so the burning sensation in the body, feeling like I'm on fire, feeling like I'm in ice, even though I'm in a warm environment, earthquakes, vivid dreams, rapid beating of the heart, that just going crazy. I remember that my heart would beat so quickly. There was a friend I used to hang out with all the time, and when she's in my presence, her heart starts to beat rapidly as well. She can feel it. As soon as she comes into my environment, she has to step out. She's like, what the hell's going on? Like things like that. Some like weird things would happen during those time periods. But this was after how many awakening type experiences? Right? It didn't happen in the first, it didn't happen in the second, didn't happen in the third, but by the fourth or fifth, for 8 months. Yeah. I'd walk out, I'd get so hot that I can walk out in the middle of winter with no coat, no shoes, no boots, nothing, feel nothing.
True Canadian. There you go.
That's when the true Canadian tapped in. I was like, man, I'm not Jamaican at all. Right? Yeah, but I can walk out in the blizzard and feel nothing, and still, and I come inside out of the blizzard and I'm sweating, just pouring with sweat. Wow. Yeah. And that would happen every winter. It probably still happens. I just haven't challenged that. But every winter for a very long time, I'd feel that way, where I can just walk out and not feel the cold. During those moments, I'm sure, like, I feel the cold when I go outside, but there's moments where that would happen when that all shuts down and I'm sweating. See, for me, it's the physical stuff.
So that's what you mean by
get used to that. Like, I've gone through the emotional and the mental too, but they don't last long. Like I went through the same person I was hanging out with that I just told you about. There was a time period I went to a 2-day depression, maybe almost 3 days, but it was definitely a 2-day depression. It'd be like the worst depression I've ever felt, like in my whole life. And I've gone through depression in my early 20s. So to go through that moment of just depressed for no reason, it just came over me. And I went to work. I still went to work, holding on to this depression. As I'm going through this, it was so friggin' painful. And then I would come home and I have to go in my room, throw myself in the bed and cry. And then after, when I was like really true to myself that I'm feeling depressed, it went away. And I've never felt that again.
What did you just say there?
I was honest with myself and just told myself that I'm depressed. Like, I admitted to myself that I'm depressed.
Oh, that's the key.
Yeah. And it went away.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
I've never felt that again. That happened back in 2010. I think it was around 2009. Because I haven't met Nathan yet, and I haven't met yet. No, it was 2010, because I met Nathan in 2012. So this was about 2009 or 2010. And I've never felt that level of being depressed ever again. That went away.
Wow.
And then there was periods of mental stuff, but they happened during peak experiences and things like, or about to enter into a peak experience, or even right before an enlightenment experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and all the other stuff. Other than that, it was. And the thing is, I can go through all that again, no problem. I guess knowing what I know now, I can go through all that again and just deal with it.
Yeah. What was you said that just before a peak experience, you would experience mental effects.
Yeah, either mental or emotional, or both, or all three. The mental, the physical, and the emotional. Before a peak experience, or before a spiritual awakening experience.
Do you have an example of like what would arise as you were about to go into the peak experience? Did you know at the time that's what was happening?
It depends on the session. Sometimes it would be extreme fear. It could be anger.
Yeah.
Or it could be hate, where I just hate everything. I hate everything about a person. It's usually not things that I hate about myself, but things that I hate about other people that I would just never would admit to myself. It's like, oh no, I can deal with that. That's nothing. Oh no, I love everyone. Those moments is you realize, like, I am holding on to a lot of hate, of things that I hate, or people that I hate, or the types of people that I hate. All of that. And you don't even notice it in your everyday life. You think that you are good. And then when you have these moments and you're like, I hate, why do people do this? Why? I hate the way people talk to me. I don't like the way how people, like, all those type of things. And it all just came up in that moment. And I just had to admit to myself, gosh, I'm a hateful person. And as soon as I say I'm a hateful person, it lifts itself. And then, yeah, I move on to the next, to the big thing. It's the moment when I surrender and admit that I am this way. And that's a very hard thing to do. Like, to say, it could be anything, right? It could be anything. I'm not going to get fully into it, because it can lead to a whole lot of questions from other people, which I'm not ready to handle with that right now. But it could be anything that will pop up, and you realize, oh gosh, I have a hatred for that thing. I have a prejudice for this thing, or I have whatever for that thing. And you're like, oh gosh, I didn't even know I was holding on to that. And the moment you admit that you're this way, you break.
I remember,
because those things are very hard to admit. Right? And it can question a lot of things. It can question your sexuality. It can question your belief in, I don't know, in the school system. I don't know. It could be anything. It could be very, very light. It could be very, very heavy, of things that it will push you to admit.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, and you just have to just let go. And once you surrender to that, you have a breakthrough. And then you move on to the next thing. And the breakthroughs are, as you know, are huge. They're huge. Oh my gosh, the breakthroughs are so rewarding. Just from being honest with yourself.
Oh God, that's one of the sweetest feelings of all.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really appreciating that on a whole new level now. The power of truth. The power of truth,
right? And it's just things that you just have to admit to yourself. It's like, oh gosh, in this moment, I feel uncomfortable with whatever it is. A lot of admitting, admitting your truth in that moment.
And plus, I find it interesting, like, especially in the work I've done over the last year or so, and what I was practicing at the retreat. There's a number of times where I was sure, like, I'm telling my truth right now. This is my truth. But with more contemplation, or going just that little bit deeper, I realized it wasn't the full truth to myself, right? Because when I touch the full truth, it's like a key in a lock. And that's when the breakthrough happens. But there's a somatic sensation of, there's a releasing, a surrendering to the truth.
To that truth, right? Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Leading up to that, it's not easy. It's not easy stuff, because you're conditioned to not tell the truth.
Yeah.
Right, to protect other people. Sometimes even to protect yourself, but just to protect other people. Because just because I ask how you're doing doesn't mean I really want to know how you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's a truth that we don't admit to ourselves.
You just want like a sample of a feeling.
Yeah, like, I don't care about my colleague. I don't care about my coworker. I'm just letting you know that I'm good. But am I? Right? But the one thing that you touched there that was really powerful is the contemplation and how important that is.
Yeah.
Right? Self-inquiry, contemplation, and how that plays a big role in this on this path. Right. Every morning I wake up, when I do energy, I say to myself, who am I? I am that. Who am I? I am that. Who am I? I am that. 1,020 times. Who am I? I am that. 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 But who am I? Nigga, I said, I am that. You sure though? Who am I? I am that. Who am I? Oh, I am that. Right, but you get to a point, hopefully you get to a point where both the question and the answer becomes the same thing.
Oh, that's so interesting. That's what one of the monitors had told me earlier on in the retreat. He talked about the experience of, okay, hopefully I can put this into words, but there's the observing witness.
Yeah.
There is what is being observed, and there's the act of observation. And there's a point, he said, where all of them merge together.
And it becomes non-dual.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So who am I? I am that. The interaction between the two, the three things, the Trinity becomes one.
Oh,
right?
that makes sense. Bridging the gap.
To the point there is no question, there is no answer, yet there is a question and an answer. And you realize who you actually are. And people think that it's one or the, that, you know, that you're asking the question because you don't know. And you give yourself the answer, I am that. Whoa, you keep doing this. And you start to realize that the two start to merge. And then that's when you get the full realization of what you actually are, that you're both. You're the question and the answer, because there is no question without an answer. There's no answer without a question.
Yeah.
Right? An answer makes no sense without a question. Right? So when you put the two together, it becomes whole. You realize that you've always been whole. You've never been separate. You've never been apart. You've never just been the question who's been asking, the seeker who's seeking whatever it is that we're trying to seek. You've always been the very thing that you've been seeking.
Is that what you mean by that? Like, I assume with a capital T, I am
With a
that.
capital T, I am that.
Yeah.
Right? I am that. I am this.
And then you
I am that I am.
Experience as you say that.
As you say that, and you realize that the experience of what you're saying also blends in with the question and the answer, like when you said the interaction between the two. That makes it whole, because enlightenment from a human being standpoint makes no sense if there's no seeking, if there's no story, right? Because enlightenment is enlightenment. Enlightenment is all there is. That's all they ever, that's all they ever was. That's all it is and all that it will ever be. Right? But if you have the human experience of seeking, of thinking that you don't have it or that you're not it, when you get it, it all makes sense. It makes the human experience worthwhile, because now you realize, oh, because you've always been all the I am that.
Yeah.
You've been that for eternity. But that's no fun. God has always been that.
Yeah.
So let me create a story, the human experience of me trying to find who I am, because it's just doing this for fun. Let me find out who I am because I have the power to do so. And I'm going to do this with billions and billions and billions of individuals trying to find out who I am. But I already know who I am. I'm just doing this for fun because I'm the only one that exists. And I am that.
Oh my God. I was reflecting on that during my walking contemplations. Like, if I'm the absolute, right? I'm trying to get direct consciousness of this oneness, absoluteness that I am. And it's having an experience through me. How would that energy feel of this infinite being that's experiencing itself in this limited form? It'd be the purest joy. Like, look at this, at that.
Until you get to the point where there's nothing to see. Yeah. At the highest point where there's just nothing to see. And there's nothing that's need to be seen, because all there is you. I am that. All right. And that's the ultimate seeing.
Yeah.
All right. Again, the audience would be small who can relate to that, but what is the point of seeing when you are that? There's nothing outside of you, yet there is. There's nothing inside of you, yet there is. There's nothing above you, yet there is. There's nothing below you, yet there is. And all those things that I just mentioned, all of that is you. I am that. And more. And more, and more, and more, and more, and more, for eternity. I am the only one to exist. Everything that's happening in the universe are facets of who I am. There is nothing else. I am expressing myself because I have the power to do so. And I've been doing this, I am doing this, and I will do this for eternity. But there is no eternity. Because all of that is the same thing. And when you come to the realization, you laugh hysterically because it's like, oh my, I've always been that. The joy that comes down a human person's face when they experience that, to come to the realization that there's nothing for me to do.
Yes.
Right? There was no retreat that I went to. I didn't meet a guru, Paramahamsa Vishwananda, and been touched by grace. None of that actually happened. It's just a story that I'm making up. Because it's such a cool story. But I'm making it up, and I'm making it up on the spot. And even all that, even though I'm creating a story, the story never happened because there's no past, present, or future.
Yeah.
Right? So there is no story. So how in the hell am I doing this? And not only am I making up my story, but I'm making up your story and Nathan's story and everyone else on the planet Earth and everyone else in the entire universe, that I'm making up all these stories, and I'm doing this with ease. I don't know how I'm doing it, because I have no past, I have no present, I have no future.
Yeah.
So how in the hell am I doing this? Yet I'm doing it. With the ultimate ease. I'm just doing it. And that's who I am.
Right? Yes.
Which I'm not. It's the most mind-blowing thing. When you come to the realization of what you actually are, which is nothing.
Yeah.
Or nothingness. Whatever you want to call it. Emptiness.
But it has everything.
But it has everything, with form, without form. All the attributes and all the qualities, yet it doesn't have any attributes or qualities. How can I be this thing? Yet I am. And when you come out of that experience, your mind and your heart and your gut is blown.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every cell within your being, every molecule, every atom, every particle is blown. That this could ever be possible. That I've always been this. And I can't be anything else, yet I am everything else.
Yeah.
Because I am the ultimate. And there's no one or anything outside of me. Yet there is. I can't think of anything greater. Because anything I think of is just part of the story. And everything I just said is just also part of the story. How do you wrap your mind around this?
Ridiculous.
Can't think of anything greater. It's like, okay, now that I'm back in my physical body and my ego, how do I talk about this?
Yeah.
Some people don't. Some people just stay silent because it's like, there's nothing for me to say. But I'm a speaker. I'm a public speaker. Been on stage how many times? How do I talk about this? How do I express this? Right? And even if I choose not to express it in that way, I still have to embody that in my being and go to work day to day, work with these youth, work with the children, do what I do, interact with parents, deal with the work politics, deal with your family, and deal with your everyday social life and your personal life, knowing this and keeping yourself sane. How do I keep myself sane through all this, knowing what I know and can never explain it through words? There is no way I can explain this through words. I have to live out the rest of my life knowing what I am, not just me, knowing what everyone is and what everything is. And I can only keep that locked in my mind, and I can never express that to anyone. All I can do is point the finger and say, over there, just keep walking straight. Stay on your path, just keep walking straight, it's over there. And when you get there, feel free and come back and tell me if you can, but I can tell you, you won't be able to. And that's the beauty of it.
Well said. For something that can't be described.
Cannot be described.
Well said.
Cannot be described. It's like the biggest blessing and the biggest curse. I can't describe this. All I can do is, this is me. This is me. This is me. The air I'm breathing in and breathing out, that's me. But there is no me. I'm making the whole thing up. Why? Because I have the power to do so. I am the only one to exist. And again, what is existence? I'm making that up too. There is no existence. It just is. So again, who am I? I am that. What is that? I don't know. But the type of knowing that when I'm saying I don't know, I'm saying this I don't know with a sense of confidence that I don't need to know. There's nothing for me to know. There's nothing for me to grasp onto. It's not a substance.
Oh.
And if I try to grab onto it, my hands will just go right through it because I can't, there's nothing for me to grab onto. I can't grasp this thing that's going right through my fingers and through my hands and everything. Yet my hands that's trying to grasp this thing is the very thing I'm trying to grasp. And it just can't be done. No one can do it. No one has ever done it because there's nothing to be done. So you can do this all day, all you want. It doesn't matter. Keep doing it all you want. It doesn't matter. It's not going to do a damn thing. Because all of that is part of the story.
It's like a cat with a string, just never gonna get it. Just
never gonna get it, never gonna get it. Nathan's favorite song. Never gonna get it, never gonna get it.
Sorry.
There's nothing to get. Right? She said absolutely nothing to get. And that very thing that you can't get is you. Playing the role of trying to get something. You can't do it. And it's not a disappointment. It's not a letdown. It's not meant to be. It's not meant to be grabbed. It's not meant to be grasped. Your job is to play human until that journey is over. And if you have to do it again and again and again, so what? You got time. Which doesn't even exist because you're making it up. So it doesn't matter from God's standpoint how many times you do this. Right? It only matters to us with the ego. So how do I end this? Right? God laughs with absolute joy. He's like, there's nothing to get. I've been doing this for eternity. And I'm going to continue to do this for eternity. There's nothing more than I can do. It's probably the only power God doesn't have. There's nothing more I can do. Right? Because God is all powerful. He also has to be powerless. Right? If God is all possibilities, it has to also include the impossibilities.
Yeah. Because it contains it all.
Right? Nathan, are you taking this in?
Yes.
The possibility and the impossibilities. Well, God can do anything. Yes. He also has the ability to not able to do anything. He can be both empowering and also helpless. He can be both because it is everything. It must include everything. That's a very hard thing to grasp. It must include everything. even the very thing that it can't do. And that's power. And it's not even a power, because it can only, power is relative. Powerful to whom? There's nothing outside of him. He can't say, oh, I'm more powerful than that God. There's no other God outside of him. Or whatever you want to call it, existence, whatever. I'm fine with any name. Call it flower, I don't care. Same thing to me. All names are sacred. All titles are sacred. All of it is sacred. All right? All of it is divine. Call God whatever you want, or no God at all. That's why I agree with the theists, the atheists, the what's the other ones? The pantheists. I agree with all of them. All of them are true. That's how powerful God is. Again, whatever you want to call it. Some people are not comfortable with the word God. I say God because I was brought up in that, in the tradition where that word is used. But is it God? No. It's beyond titles. It's beyond all names. It's beyond all labels.
It's beyond meat.
It's beyond meat.
You got the KFC and the vegan burger.
You say some of the stupidest shit, and that's God too. God is expressing itself in a humorous way that gave itself the ability to come up with the idea and the capability of coming up with beyond meat. All God. Mind-blowing. I don't know what else to say. My mind is still blown. I cannot wrap my head around this. And it's been this way since it happened.
Yeah.
Right? I can't shake it. I'll be dealing with this for the rest of my human life as Morgan. Of how blown, nothing has ever done this to me in this manner. I've even had the highest level of sex, and that still doesn't even cover what I'm trying to convey here. The highest level, ultimate sex, the ultimate orgasm. I've done all that, and it still doesn't cover what I'm trying to convey.
Yes, you can't say that. Then say nothing. Just walk off. Just,
as I'm saying nothing, I'm speaking.
My life.
The nothingness is the speaker. If I stay silent, something is still talking. You can't hear it, you have to feel it. Nothing has ever touched my soul, the core of my being, than this awakening. Nothing.
Yeah.
And this is when I say nothing. Nothing has touched my core. Nothing has touched my core. Nothing is touching my core. Amazed.
Yeah.
So what's next on the agenda? What's your plan now? Now that this has happened, what's next for you?
Oh, Lord. Making contemplation a consistent practice, contemplation, meditation, working with the energy is going to be a huge part of the process, but also walking contemplations, writing contemplations.
Writing contemplations.
Really, I'm truly recognizing how absolutely crucial that is. I have a whole new appreciation for it, because if I don't continue to cultivate contemplation, what happens is this broad, expansive perspective that I was able to tap into starts to shrink again, because I'm losing sight of who is having this experience, So that's going to be a key aspect of the process. My mind is also playing around with how can I express myself creatively more, whether it's the way I cook, like while I cook, or something I've written or created, or how do I connect with this life force energy and allow it to express itself in whatever way it feels expressed to in the moment. Continuing to cultivate my ability to become aware of my truth and what's real for me at any given moment, and then to be able to communicate it, and so to live a more authentic life. But also practicing not doing, not doing. That's an old default pattern I've had for the longest time. Like, I'm going to do things, I'm going to make them happen. And in some ways that has served me in my life, right? There's some levels of success that I wouldn't have been able to reach there without that kind of grit.
Yeah.
But it's about knowing when to trust and allow. So learning to trust and allow and surrender and be open is going to be a continued part of my practice. So those are some of the insights that I want to work with. And also some of the things that are coming up for me, how to listen towards. For example, one of the insights I had at the retreat was just how important it is to slow down, as cliche as that sounds, because I realized that by slowing down, there's a sweet spot when I'm experiencing life, when I can slow down enough that I'm going to the pace that my life is unfolding in that moment. Because I could be doing something really relaxing, like reading a book, but if inside I am going fast, trying to make something happen, I'm trying to read this book, I don't know how to put it into words beyond it. There's like an energetic pulling forward of, oh, I'm going fast, I got to make things happen, I got to do things. Even if I'm doing something slow, I'm out of sync with what I'm doing. So I'm learning to synchronize with what is real in this moment. Because I even noticed with my thought process, I can see now more the way my mind works and the way my mind constructs reality. There might be something that happened in front of me. My friend said this, but I can see more clearly, like almost like these like drops of ink and water. These thoughts, these ideas, these concepts, these stories, and some of them I can see, and others I cannot see. But it's like the ripple effects, the ripple effects. So I'm focused on staying as grounded as possible in my experience in this moment, as clear and unbiased as possible, which is easier said than done. But it's part of the practice.
Yeah, and it's also okay when you're not grounded.
Yeah, right? That's the other thing. Oh, what we talked about the other night. Whatever it is, let it be okay.
Let it be okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
let it be okay.
Powerful to hold on to. Like
yeah, it's like let go of everything. Just let go.
It's like a
you just realize that it's the universe that's doing everything that is meant to be done. It's not even us. It's the universe that's doing it. So it's another part of that too. When I move, the universe moves. When the universe moves, I move. Because you and the universe is one and the same.
Just like the service.
Yeah, that's the song that talks in my head too. When I move, you move. Just like that. Yeah. So yeah, it's that part when you realize like, oh my gosh, everything that I think that I'm doing, I'm not doing it. Like it's the ultimate free will. So when people say, well, so that means you're saying there's no free will. So it's not what I'm saying. I said the free will is not of me, the ego. The free will is of my ultimate self. Everything that's happening in this universe and all universes is because of my free will.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm making this all happen in the way it's happening, but I'm no different than you. It's the same thing. Right? So every thought that we have, every thought and every action that we take is the cause of everything that's happening in the entire universe, but not just us. Everything that's when a rock rolls down a hill, that's the free will of the universe. It was supposed to roll down the hill in that manner to do whatever it's supposed to do within linear time. But everything in the entire universe is happening right now. It's not happening through cause and effect. Cause and effect is one level where things are happening through cause and effect. But on the higher level, everything is happening simultaneously. Right? And that's the ultimate free will.
Yeah. Oh, I love the description of that.
Shit is so mind-blowing. Nathan, I can't wait for you to get there.
Honestly, like with me, when I have like spiritual experiences and stuff like that, it's always through a funny way. So
here's Nathan trying to relate. Keep going, buddy.
I can tell you certain experiences like influences. Remember when during the pandemic, I was walking down the street and I let off a bunch of car alarms.
Yeah. I remember that.
People thought I was stealing cars, but no, I was just like, you can't explain. You're having, you're meditating and you affect things around you. And I remember I never told this to you before, but I was on a bus one time, and this brown man walked in, and there's nothing special about this brown smell, and it was a beautiful smell. I'm like, what is that? What? And then I started seeing all these colors. And I started questioning everything about me. I'm like, am I gay? I'm like, what was it? Was the food? Was the perfume? And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just like, what's going on here? It's
that can happen.
Moment. And like, I feel like if I ever have an enlightening moment, like I feel like someone's gonna like fart on me. It's gonna be like some stupid experience that's gonna have me like blow through. Like,
come on and hug you. It's a fart the whole time.
Something so stupid. Like a cat farting in my face, and I'll just see enlightenment.
Oh, that's the third eye.
Yeah, that can happen. That happens to a lot of people. Like when you start to smell this divine fragrance, this perfume, this could be like flowers. Everything you taste, it tastes like milk and honey. That's how they get the term milk and honey. When you enter the kingdom of heaven, when you're in paradise, and you'll have access to milk and honey. All these things are just metaphors of explaining enlightenment. And people just thought that they were talking about a physical place that you go to when you die. The whole time when you read the Bible and they talk about anything about paradise, they're talking about enlightenment. They're just using metaphors that people can understand, and people took it literally.
Yeah.
Right? Talking about enlightenment the whole friggin' time. Walking the streets of gold. When you're a place that you live for eternity. Where you can be friends with the animals and talk with the animals. Where you meet your loved ones and all that stuff. They're just talking about enlightenment, but no one can explain it. So they use these metaphors.
Yeah.
Right? The land of milk and honey. No, the land of milk and honey is right here. You can have all the milk and honey you want. Right? And it could be dairy free. Because I'm like, yo, I can't, like, as a vegan, I can't drink milk or have honey. What the fuck? Right? Right? But this version, that same chemist that came up with Beyond Meat came up with Beyond Milk and Beyond Honey. All part of enlightenment. The sweetness is for everyone, it's universal.
Oh, it's not real sugar. It's called Splenda. Got that?
The Splenda.
Splenda of life.
Splendid. Yeah, this is beautiful. This was a great conversation, as we always have. It's wow, right. It's a very enlightening one, and Nathan was able to keep up. I'm like really amazed by that.
I'm the splendor of the conversation. What can I say?
Yeah, the splendor of the conversation. And I'm glad you shared that experience that you talked about, because you shared that with me before, after you meditated and you were walking outside and the car alarms were going off. I even said to myself, damn, I wish that happened to me.
Well, the strange thing is when it first happened, I was coming home from the hospital with my mom. I was taking her to because she was doing chemo at the time.
Yeah. Right.
And I was meditating with your thing for like the whole year or whatever.
Call it Energy. You don't have to say your
Energy. Sorry, my bad. Energy.
Give me the plug.
The shameless plug. So I was meditating throughout the whole, like, every day, everything, and then I was feeling so exhausted because we doing chemo, right? It's just you're just sitting there for hours and you're just like So we finally got an Uber, and this lady, this Uber driver, she had like this meditation tape, and I was sometimes when I get really tired, like a lot of things like songs and food really affect me, and I can feel them on a deeper level. So she was playing the CD, which I bought later on, but she played the CD and it consumed me.
I remember this.
It was like, oh,
it blew your mind.
It was beautiful. I sent you. Yeah, I bought the book. I bought everything. I didn't read it, but I bought the book with the CD in it. That's all I wanted. I read the pages. I'm like, this is some bullshit. But the CD though, the CD was great.
Yeah.
And so it was so beautiful. The sounds, I stepped out of the car, like three car alarms just went off like for no reason. And no one, I tried to tell my mom it's because of the meditation. She's like, nah, it's whatever. Then it happened again. It kept on happening. It was just like, what the fuck's going on? So it was just like, it was just funny. It's just funny.
And those things can happen. During my third year of meditation, maybe my third year, have I ever told the story? I know we're hitting the 2-hour mark, but have I told the story? One day I was going to help out a friend with his cleaning job. And so I went into my vehicle. This is years ago, right? So maybe my second year, third year, probably my second year in. And I went into my vehicle and I turned on the ignition and the windshield blew out.
Oh,
yeah. And all I remember is I'm waking up and I heard someone outside saying, "Is he dead?" So I woke up slowly because it knocked me out. I woke up slowly and the windshield was all, I shouldn't say blowout, I'm exaggerating, but the whole thing cracked all the way through. Like the whole windshield cracked. You can pretty much take your hand and push it out.
wow.
Yeah, right? You can easily just push it out. It crossed my mind that it could be what I read about Kundalini, at least the activation of Kundalini, because not the Kundalini awakening, but the activation of it. I read about it and I'm like, no, that's too big. There's no way I did that, right? But when we took the car in and they checked the vehicle, they said there's nothing wrong with the vehicle. There's no reason why you could have hit you could have turned on the ignition and that could happen. There's nothing wrong with the vehicle. They said, did you hit something? And like, no, I just turned on the ignition. They said, there's nothing wrong with the vehicle, right? That stayed on my mind for some time. Maybe about 2 or 3 years later, I'm reading a similar experience that happened to a guy who was talking about his Kundalini activation and how he did somewhat the same thing, right? And then I read other accounts of people in a chat, people who had experience with Kundalini, same thing. And I went, holy shit, did my energy do that? All right. And then from then, I would do it to TVs. I'd destroy TVs. Like I'd be sitting in front of a TV and I would say, I want the TV off now. The TV would just shut off. Not only would it shut off, I can't get it back on. TV's ruined. I did it with microwaves. I did it with computers, with hard drives. One time, years later, I was at work, and I was dabbling with white powder gold to see what the effects would be on the energy. So I was taking white powder gold, white powder silver at different time periods. And when I was taking the white powder gold, I'd go to work, I'd go on my computer goes dead. Had to call the IT guy. The IT guy comes in, he goes, "Oh, your hard drive is burnt out. That's weird. We just put this in not too long ago." He replaced it. I go behind the computer again. A week later, that one blows out. He's like, "What the fuck?" He changes it. He gives me a third hard drive. Go around the computer. That one lasted. Nothing happened to that one. He came to me, goes like, "Yo, what is it you're doing to these hard drives, man?" I was just like, right? All these weird accounts. I'd go in my room. One time I went in my room. This didn't happen often. I went in my room and I'm looking. I turned on the light and I said, "Man, I wonder if this power is real." I look up and I say, "Okay, light bulb, blow out." Shit, light bulb, blow out. Damn, light bulb, blow out. Nothing. I go down the stairs. I went in the kitchen and I made myself a sandwich. Came back up the stairs, my light was off. I went to the light switch, nothing. The light bulb was blown out.
Wow.
What do you say to that? Right?
Okay.
I remember getting into an argument one time. Got into an argument. The whole power of half of the power in my place burnt out. Had to get it all replaced. I remember one time at work, I had a program director, and he pissed me off. He got me upset. Something happened, and he did some kind of power trip, and it really bothered me. And I said, "You know what? I hope all the power of this building shuts off." I walk out the building. I went to the wreck that's down the street. I came back. Everyone's looking at me like I'm a zombie. I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" I said, "Morgan, you shouted out, I wish all the power in this building was shut off. As soon as you left, the power shut off." Another time, I was having a singing competition with one of my youth, right? She's a great singer, and I felt that I could challenge her, right? So Nathan probably knows the story. So she's singing. She does her note. I do mine. She does hers. I do mine. She does hers. I do this Bobby Brown dance move. I spin around and drop to my knees, and the power went out as soon as I dropped to my knees. She's like, "Guppies" is a word that we use in Jamaica for ghosts. She's like, and she ran out of the building. Right? The list of these things that would happen. They don't happen to me anymore. Something like that hasn't happened in a very, very long time. It hasn't happened in years. But in those years, those things would happen all the time. So when people come back to me, especially like with Nathan and a few other people that came to me, telling me about these weird events, yeah, they can happen. Electromagnetic energy, right? It can interfere with other electromagnetic energies and shut things off and all that. So yeah.
You know what's funny? When I smelled that guy on the bus and I saw the colors, I started sniffing guys for like a week just to see if I can get that scent, like just to see if I can get that back. So I just go. So how you doing there, Bob?
I could just get that back. Yeah, because you get attached. It's like, I want that thing to happen again. Right? But that's not how the universe works. It happens when it happens, and when it's gone, it's gone. So the universe is trying to remind you to let go of everything. It's very, very hard to do. Let go of everything, even the idea of enlightenment, because that can become a trap too. Right? When it happens, just let it go. It will happen again. Just let it go. Keep doing the work. Keep doing whatever you're supposed to do. Right? Yeah. It will happen again. It'll happen again and again and again. It actually gets easier, and it'll happen again until you have the final blowout. And when after you have the final blowout, you may not even have the motivation to do it again, because I think at that point you burnt out all your dopamine. Right? And at that point you don't have much of a desire anymore to try to achieve it.
So it's interesting. You just talked about a link with dopamine. Is it that these types of, when you hit a state of enlightenment, it does something to your dopamine receptors? Like something?
I think it's because you're releasing so much dopamine, that feeling, you get the reward system. You probably get the highest level of that of the reward through your release of dopamine.
Oh, so maybe what I'm going through is just a dopamine hangover.
See, it sounds simple, right? So it's just a dopamine hangover, but your brain is doing this. The same brain that was created by the same creator out of the same nothingness, right? So even dopamine, the chemical dopamine that allows your brain to go through that, is, the divine chemical that was created out of the mind of this thing, so that you can have that human experience. But without dopamine, you wouldn't be able to get the reward from that.
Yeah.
Right. Serotonin's being released during that moment. Serotonin, high levels of serotonin, all of that. It's supposed to be released from the brain's perspective. And that's why some scientists will say, oh, the reason why that's happening because it's brain chemicals. Yeah, sure it is. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Right. But why does the self experience those chemicals? Right? Explain that part. Because anyone can make up a chemical and whatever. Why is it the actual self benefits from these chemicals that are being released in your brain? What is there that says, oh my gosh, I'm happy? What is that says, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm going through levels of depression? What is getting that reward or the consequence of that? Yeah. And that's the part that no one can explain. Who's getting that? Why is there a sense of self that can give that feedback?
Yeah.
Right. So like, again, is consciousness in the brain, or is the brain within consciousness? Well, it's both. Your brain is producing consciousness, yes, but consciousness is producing the brain. Consciousness with a capital C is producing the brain, but consciousness is not only producing the brain, it's producing all the plantation, all the mountains, all the rivers, all the clouds, all the microscopic creatures, all animals, all human beings, all planets, all solar systems, all galaxies, all universes. Consciousness is manifesting all of that, which includes brains that has the experience, the individual experience through individual consciousness, that experiences your everyday world. So we're not excluding the chemistry of the brain. Yes, the reason why you experience those things is because the brain is giving off these chemicals. Yes, we get that. We're not denying that. But what's producing the brain? And what's producing the environment that allows the brain to thrive in? Right? And when the brain lets go of the ego, it experiences itself. It truly experiences itself, because your brain is pretty much the mimic of the universe itself. But not just the brain. Every cell, every neuron, synapses, dendrite, everything that makes up the brain of what it is on a quantum level. If you go down to the quantum brain, because the brain is, even though it's biological, it's neurological, all the stuff. I mean, you go all the way down, it gets down to the quantum, down to the string theory level of the vibrating strings that is vibrating in a certain way that makes up mass. Right? When in the moment of enlightenment, if you get down to those levels, you can realize that at a level of the unified theory of consciousness, the unified field of consciousness, it's creating all of that. So you can experience reality from a quantum level, or down to a unified field level, down to a 0-point energy, down to whatever. All of that is being experienced from the inside out and the outside in, because the inside and the outside becomes one. The smallest vibrating string becomes exactly the same as the galaxy itself, the one and the same. It's an experience where, even though what is creating all the different types of mass is because of the vibration of the string and the shape of the string, all of that is creating what we call mass, because it vibrates at a certain, let's music, so it's vibrating at a certain level that creates what mass is. But at the highest level, or at least at the second highest level, you realize that all the strings are vibrating at the same frequency. Hence why everything appears to be the same. Right? The reason why things are different, because everything is vibrating at different frequencies that makes up matter, or makes up mass in different ways. But at that level, you realize that everything is vibrating at the same frequency. And then you get to the point where you realize there is no vibration and there's no frequency. All of that is also the imagination of yourself, of the self, the self with a capital S. And the self. Capitals. There's a lot of capitals, because we want to make it clear from the small self and the big self. Right? Or the small consciousness, big consciousness. Right? Even small God, big God. Or love. Love, and then love with a capital L. Love with a capital L is totally different than what you experience as love, whether it's romantic love, or if it's out of obligation, or platonic, all that stuff. Love with a capital L is when you realize that you have you love the universe as yourself. And then at the higher level of non-duality, you realize that the universe is the self. And love is not even an action at that point. Now, love actually becomes a noun. Right? So there's nothing for you to love. You are love.
Yeah.
Right? And that's with the capital L. Just to be clear, when we're making the distinction between small love and capital, and love with a uppercase.
I got it. It was just for the viewers. So
sure, whatever. Whatever floats your boat. Yeah, but we'll end it here, because there'll be a lot to edit. We'll end it here. There's so much more we can talk about, but we'll stop here. But that was absolutely beautiful.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we couldn't have done it. We couldn't have done it without Nathan. Nathan, that's why I always bring him back. I won't do a session without Nathan, unless I'm doing something else. Nathan actually, he opens me. He allows me to express just from his presence. So I thank you, Nathan. No, I'm dead serious. You're laughing, but I'm dead serious with you. All right. There's things I don't joke about. Right. When I'm in the company of the right people, I can really let go. And then when I'm in the company of other people, I can't. Right. You allow me to let go. That's your gift. And his mind's like, this guy's so bullshit.
He lets go. He lets go on me.
No, but I mean that from the bottom of my heart, and I thank you for doing what you do.
That's good. I
Right,
appreciate it.
Yeah.
I can do that.
I know how to pick the right people for certain things, because it's not just because out of convenience. There's people that makes me feel a certain way so I can get a certain task done. Right? It's an energy thing. And it has to do with the path and everything of building that intuition, but it also has to do with years of stand-up and understanding and feeling an audience. All right? I know when people are good people. All right? You have your shit, but you're a good guy.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? Was that good? Was that some ball jiggling that you wanted?
Yes.
Like, yeah, that's all you wanted.
Like, oh my God.
Freaking guy.
I was about to cry.
Yeah, it's what you wanted. I'll just give it to you. It's like, here you go, buddy.
I wanted.
This is for you. All right?
Thank you.
You're a good friend. You're a good guy. I thank you for doing this. And no, I will not get the viewers up. I'll take whatever viewers I get. I don't give a fuck.